moving very, very quick, very fast, from talking about Avram, from discussing Avram, his lifetime, his challenges that he faced, the qualities that he gave us as the Jewish people thousands of years later. We come to his son Yitzchak, Isaac. And also Isaac, Yitzchak, gave us special qualities to help us out for the rest of our journey, our lifetime, and our mission here in the world. Who exactly is Yitzchak? And what exactly did he give us? And I would like to begin with a story about a person by the name of Nimrod Chefetz. His name is Nimrod, his first name. And we read about Nimrod not long ago. He was one of the biggest kings in the times of Avram. But unfortunately, he wasn't such a positive king. He wasn't such a good king. He was called Nimrod. Nimrod comes from the source. The word that the meaning of the word Nimrod is mered, rebellion. And this king used to rebel against Hashem. So it isn't a name that you would want to give your son. But this person, Nimrod Chefetz, he was given the name before his parents returned b'tshuva, before they chazru b'tshuva, and he ended up returning b'tshuva, and he entered the Rebbe's room asking the following question: what name should he choose? He wants to change his name. He learned about Nimrod. He knows that Nimrod isn't the best guy. He doesn't want to be called after him. So he's asking the Rebbe, which name should I change to? The Rebbe's answer is a very, very interesting answer. We'll get to that right at the end of the shir, because this story, this story is connected to Yitzchak, to what Yitzchak gives us, to what Yitzchak, Isaac, taught us, and it has to do a lot with our Parsha. Our Parsha teaches us about the two sons, Parsha Toldot Yitzchak, the descendants of Yitzchak were Yaakov and Esau. And the Torah describes the difference between the two. The Torah tells us that was an ish tam. He was a complete, pure person. Yoshev Ohalim. He sat all day in the tent learning Torah and davening. What a great person. That was one son. But Yitzchak, Isaac, had a second son, Esau. And Esau, what it says about him, he wasn't sitting in a tent learning Torah all day. He was going out hunting. And we all know that Esau, Edom, is one of the descendants of Esau. And we know that Esau himself wasn't the best guy. And here we've got to understand something very interesting. We read in our Parsha that when Rivka was pregnant with these two children, whenever she walked close to a base medrash, close to a shul, close to a synagogue, she felt that the baby wants to go out. The baby wants to leave. The baby wants to run into the base medrash and learn. Whenever she went by a house of worshiping idols, she felt the same feeling that the baby wants to go out, the baby wants to leave. And she was so confused. She said, well, what's happening with this baby? Does it want to go to a shul, or does it want to go to a place that where they worship idols? So she goes and consults with the scholars of that generation, Shem, and he tells her that you have two babies who will end up to be two different nations. There's Yaakov and there's Esav, two different people. Their interests are different. What they want is different. And they'll end up to compete with each other in different ways. And the question is, how could it be that Isaac, Yitzchak, such a holy person, that Hashem tells him, don't go down to Egypt because Egypt isn't for you. You are pure and holy. You must stay in Eretz HaKodesh, in the Holy Land, in Israel. How could it be that one of his sons is such a bad person? Esav, that cheated on his father, basically, lied to his father. He hunted all day. He took several wives. How could this be that he is a son of Esav? That he is a son of Yitzchak, of Isaac? How could such a thing happen? But the truth is that if we will read in the Midrashim, there's something very interesting about Esav. The Midrash tells us that Esav kept Torah v'mitzvos. He was observant until his grandfather passed away. He had a very special grandfather, Avram. Avram Avinu, that was very kind, and he believed in everyone, and he saw the good in everyone. He saw the good also in Esav, and that's why he invested a lot of time in Esav. And he taught him the ways of Hashem. He taught him to learn Torah and to keep mitzvot. And that's why Esav, until the age of 13, until his grandfather passed away, until Avram passed away, he did keep Torah and mitzvahs. But at that point, at the time when Avram when Avram left the world, Avram passed away, at that point, Esav stopped keeping Torah and mitzvahs. So that is Avram. Avram believes in everyone. Avram sees the good in everyone. But unfortunately, it did not last long. Who is Yitzchak? What does Yitzchak give us? So Yitzchak, he is all about hard work. Yitzchak, it says in the words of Kabbalah, in the words of Chassidut, he comes milamata lamayla, which means that he works, it takes a long time, but he digs the, one of the other stories that we're going to learn about Yitzchak is that he dug up the wells that his father dug before, which means that he comes from the bottom. He starts, he elevates the people, not shining light and seeing the good in everyone like Avraham does, which is also very good, but it's not going to last long because it's just shining light. It's just doing kind things. Yitzchak wanted to see that there is some kind of elevation in the person in himself. He's not just going to shine light. He's got to make sure that the person is actually a vessel and a kli. So that's Yitzchak, that's Isaac. But let's talk about Esav once again. So Esav, he kept Torah v'mitzvahs until the age of 13. His grandfather passed away. But after that, he didn't keep Torah v'mitzvahs. He basically went off the way. And talking about these personalities, these people, we know that the Maimonides says that there are two types of ways to serve Hashem. One of the ways, as the Maimonides describes it, is Hachosid HaMe'uleh. Hachosid HaMe'uleh means the perfect chosid, He does not have a fight. He does not have a combat with his Yetzer. It's a gift from Hashem, because usually everyone has the fight with the Yetzer, but certain people that are called Chassid HaMeuleh, the highest Chassid, they do not have this fight, this combat with the Yetzer. They are much higher than that. And then the Maimonides says that there is another type of person, and he is called HaKovesh Es Yitzroi, a person who conquers his Yetzer, which means if he finds himself in a challenge on a daily basis, but nevertheless he's able to overcome these challenges, these difficulties, these temptations that the Yetzer Hara brings. These are the two types of personalities, and as the Rambam basically describes, talks about these two people, there's an extra additional example that the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya, and he says that there are two types of food. One type is sweet. The other type is spicy. The sweet type of food is the type of food that is compared to a Chassid HaMeuleh, a perfect Chassid where everything is pure, everything is holy, everything is good, everything is sweet. But then we have something spicy. And if it's too spicy, you can't eat it. It's impossible to eat. But if you're able to take this spice and prepare it in a good way, in a controlled way, it can turn out even tastier than a sweet food. Because if you do it in the right way, you're able to have the spice. It adds an additional flavor to the food. And that is compared to the person that is kovesh es yitzra, that conquers his Yetzer Hara. He conquers his Yetzer by controlling it. And that is the way where he takes the spice, this Yetzer Hara, which could be very bad. You won't be able to eat it. It will be impossible to eat, too spicy. But he takes it and he controls it in such a way where it is obtained, and therefore it doesn't do harm, but there's even a benefit. And Hashem, by the way, Hashem enjoys the hard work, the working on the Yetzer Hara, conquering the Yetzer Hara, even more than something sweet, than a chassid that doesn't have a Yetzer Hara at all. Because Hashem says, you know what? This person has to do what we call iskafia. He's got to control himself. This is appreciated. This is hard work. This is effort that's put in for my sake. And that when the Yetzer Hara is conquered, Istalek Yakara the Kutchabricha, the light of Hashem shines in all the worlds. Not only in our world, but in the worlds up. They also receive a light from Hashem because of us conquering our Yetzer Hara. So here we see again that there are these two personalities, and there are two kinds of foods that can give us some kind of idea to the concept of these two people, personalities. Now, the big question is, where do we have the power to actually conquer our Yetzer Hara? At the beginning, we spoke about the idea that every single thing that we do today comes from our forefathers. Our forefathers are those who created our DNA that works till this day. Avraham had his impact. Yitzchak had his impact. Yaakov also had his impact, each one in a different way. But these are the things that give us the strength today. Avraham gave us the ability to be kind and to do Mesirus Nefesh. We spoke about it a few times, that being able to sacrifice ourselves truly comes from Avraham. Doing it without any interest, that comes from Avraham. Today, when people are prepared to give up their own lives, it's for an interest. It's because of a cause. But Avraham gave us the ability to do it even if there is no interest and we won't gain anything from it. So what did Yitzchak give us? What did Isaac give us? Yitzchak gave us the ability to conquer our Yetzer. Where did he give us such a thing? Yitzchak was a perfect person. He had no Yetzer. He was the type, the sweet type. He was the Chassid HaMe'uleh, as the Maimonides says. If it was up to him, he didn't need to conquer his Yetzer at all. But the truth is that he gave us the power to conquer our Yetzer because of his son Esau. We all try to think that Esau was a bad person. He wasn't a bad person. He started off pretty well. He started off as the son of Isaac, the greatest person in that generation, Yitzchak Avinu. He kept mitzvahs until the age of 13. But at that point, he could not conquer his Yetzer anymore. That's it. He was the second type of person. Yaakov, the brother, the Chassid HaMe'uleh, was the perfect Chassid. He sat all day in the tent and learned Torah. He sat there all day. So he was perfect. But Esau was born not as a bad person, but with potential to do bad. He could do bad. He had a Yetzer, and he needed to conquer the Yetzer. He needed to conquer that the Yetzer Hara, and to make sure that it would lead him only to doing good. To take that spice, and to make sure that it's in the right amount, in order for it not to be too spicy. So he was able to do it until the age of 13 with the guidance of his grandfather Abraham. But after that, he couldn't do it anymore. So when we learn about the Medrash telling us that Rivka, when she walked close to a place where they worshipped idols, Esau wanted to leave and wanted to go worship idols, doesn't make him a bad person. He had a potential to do bad, as all of us have today. He was exactly in our position. And his mission was to conquer his Yetzer. His mission was to make sure that technically, although he might want to go and worship idols, but he'll stop himself and he won't go. That is the idea of Kovesh es Yitzchak, conquering the Yetzer. Let's go back to the story that we started at the beginning of this year about Nimrod Chefetz. This person by the name of Nimrod entered the Rebbe's room and asked the Rebbe, what name should I change to? The Rebbe told him, do not change your name. Take this name Nimrod, which is all about rebelling. And instead of using it to rebel against Hashem, use it to rebel against the Yetzer Hara. Use this force and power, this spice of rebelling, but direct it to the better side. Direct it to a side that will give you strength to serve Hashem, to conquer your Yetzer. So in other words, this is an amazing answer of the Rebbe, and it gives us a whole new perspective to what is good and bad in the world. There are many, many things that aren't bad. Depends how we use them. We can use them for bad, but we can also use them for good. And our mission is to take all of these things and to use them for good, to make sure that they are directed in the right direction. Where do we get the power to do such a thing? From Isaac, from Yetzer, who had such a son. That had the potential to do bad and was supposed to direct his nature to do bad into doing good. So for a certain amount of time it worked, but after that it didn't work, unfortunately. We still have the ability and power for it to work, and it's in our hands. Thank you very much for taking part in the shir, and I'm looking forward, Be'ezrat Hashem, seeing you next week on Sunday.